Hi guys, this is the video for Treasure Island Unit 8 Lesson 3. Not a pirate, just a teacher. But I'm starting like this today, and then we're gonna view the workbooks and everything in a second. But I wanted to talk about a couple of important things at the beginning of this lesson, because throughout the rest of the unit we're going to be working on writing our own adventure stories. So I wanted to talk about some features of a good adventure story, because Treasure Island, the book we're reading right now, is an adventure story. Okay, so it has all of these important features in some way or another in this book. And as we begin to kind of plan and think about your own adventure story that you're going to be writing, we want to keep these things in mind, okay? So a good adventure story has a main character, and usually that character is a memorable hero, okay? So it's still pretty early on in this story, so I don't know who the story of the hero, or the hero of the story, is going to be yet, but the narrator is Jim so far. So I'm assuming he's our, main character. He'll be our hero in some way. But think about a character that could be a hero, okay? The setting, so the place and time of your story. Usually adventure stories take place in far away, like distant lands, and usually in imagined places, okay? Because like Treasure Island isn't a real location, so something in your imagination. That doesn't mean, leprechauns and unicorns and Fortnite llamas, but just somewhere far away, made up, okay? And then the time for setting, the time that your story takes place, it can be in the past, like this one, Treasure Island. Remember, Robert Louis Stevenson wrote this about 130 years in the past from when he was living. It could also be a futuristic story, or it could just be one that kind of takes place during present time, like now, okay? Plot, so like the action and the story sequence, so what's happening in the story as it goes on. So usually adventure stories have fast-paced action, so it's not like this boring story for most of the time and then, oh look, it ends. That's boring. That's not a good adventure story. It has to be fast-paced, okay? So like boom, 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 boom. Things are happening in the story, okay? Usually there are dangerous elements, like in Treasure Island. So far there have been pirates looking for treasure, there have been fights, people have died already, like crazy stuff already. Dangerous, fast-paced action so far, and we're only 2 chapters in. And usually there's some kind of mystery or quest that they're either solving or looking for in an adventure story. So like the squire and the doctor and Jim are making this big plan to go and look for Treasure Island to find the buried treasure. So that's their quest. So something that they're trying to achieve. So some kind of mystery they're solving, some kind of treasure they're looking for, something like that is usually included in the plot of an adventure story. And the theme, so like the overall message of the story, like what would you learn at the end after having read your story? Usually adventure stories are about things like bravery, loyalty, trustworthiness, and curiosity. So you don't have to do all of those. You don't even have to do one of those. You can choose your own theme. Like think about what you would want your readers of your story to learn from the characters in your story, okay? So these are just some important features. We're gonna come back to these and talk about these probably throughout the unit. Today we're just gonna be talking a little bit about the setting and your main character, okay? So just those 2 things to start. And yeah, that's it for now. We'll get into planning for that in a little while. First, we're gonna go into the workbook pages though. So the start of these workbook pages for lesson 3 say like, as you and your partner read chapter 2. You don't have a partner right now because you're at home, but what you can do is go through and reread chapter 2. I've already read it, so I'm not gonna be reading it again in this video, okay? So if it was a couple days ago you read it, or if you just need a refresher, read it again, okay? That's what we would be doing in class. We would be rereading chapter 2, the sea chest and the blind man, okay? So reread that chapter if you want to. If you want to pause this video and go back to my lesson 2 video and listen to me reread it, or to first read the chapter, you can, or just read it by yourself, whatever you need to do to remember this story, okay? And then we have some workbook pages to do about the chapter. So there's some comprehension questions about those pages. So it's on page 10, and it's kind of a long chapter. It goes all the way to page something. There was the cool map they found. That was awesome. All the way to page 21, okay? So remember, they found the map. Jim took it to Dr. Livesey and the squire went off to go find a crew and a ship, and they're trying to plan their way all the way from England to Spanish Main to find this treasure island where the Captain John Flint, I think was Flint, Captain Flint at least, was hiding his treasure. He buried his treasure somewhere on this island, so they're making their plans to go find it. Okay, so that's the quest they're on. Lots of fast-paced action so far. A lot of, pirates they've escaped from so far. Okay, so this is gonna be tricky. I'm gonna try and move my little stand over here so that you can see my workbook pages. Bear with me. Okay. Oh, don't look over there. That's a surprise. Spoiler alert. You didn't see what that was. Don't worry about it. Okay. Got it. All right, so I'm assuming you have paused the video already and have reread chapter 2. So congratulations if you have. If you haven't, do that now. Pause this video. Go read chapter 2 again. Okay, what did I say? Pages 10 through 21. Okay, or go back to the previous video, rewatch it when I'm reading it so you can follow along if you need to. But you should be able to read that chapter on your own, no problem, and then we should be able to answer some questions about it. So, I do need my book though, because we're gonna have to reference certain page numbers for where we found our answers, okay? So I have my book ready, have my workbook page ready. Okay, so number 1, why did Jim and his mother wait in a ditch? Okay, so at the beginning, thanks, flat Mrs. Flitton, get out of here. Okay, so at the beginning, remember they're going through the sea chest and everything, trying to find the money that the mom is owed for the captain's stay at the inn. But then they hear people coming, so they have to run and hide, right? So was it because they wanted to avoid a mob of angry townspeople? They were looking for their dog? What? There was never a dog. Huh. They were hiding from pirates ransacking the inn, or they were lost? Definitely C. Okay, so the pirates who had put the black spot on the captain came for him that night, found him dead, and then they were looking for the bundle in the sea chest, but Jim had already taken that, so they ran. So let's see, what page was that? Here. Moonlight glimpsed the ditch. We, without hesitating, we made our way toward it. There we waited. Okay, so that is on page 12. Okay. Number 2. A simile is a comparison of two different things, usually using like or as. We know that. We've learned that so many times. Paraphrase the following simile from page 15 in your own words. So I'm going to go to page 15 real quick so I can figure out the context of this simile. But the simile is, they scattered like rabbits in every direction. And then if I look at page 15, that's this part for right here. So it kind of starts on page 14 though. So they're fighting. Remember, the blind guy wants to stay and keep searching for Jim, who took the stuff out of the sea chest, but all his men are like, no, we're gonna get caught, we're gonna get arrested. So they want to run, and he's fighting them off. And it says on page 14, this quarrel saved us. For while it was raging, another sound came from the top of a nearby hill, galloping horses. A pistol shot came from the hedge. That must have been the final signal warning the men of serious danger, for they scattered like rabbits in every direction. In half a minute, only Pew remained. So that means that they heard the warning shot and then they scattered like rabbits. So what does that mean? You have to paraphrase it. That means in your own words. So retell that in your own words. We're explaining what it means. So you can write what I'm writing, but if you want to write your own thoughts, that's fine too. It's in your own words. So if they scattered like rabbits in every direction, I'm picturing the rabbits that live out on the road in front of my house, and anytime they see us or a cat or a dog or a car, anything, they scatter. They take off, they run like mad in any direction they decide. Usually it doesn't make sense. Usually they run towards us on accident because they're just startled. So they're just running like crazy. Okay, so if I was going to rephrase this, I would probably say the pirates ran away quickly in all directions. It's hard to say, it's hard to paraphrase in every direction. Okay, so they is the pirates. And the pirates ran away quickly in all directions. That's what I think the simile means in my own words. But you can write something different if you think it means something else. Number 3. Chapter 2 contains 2 different settings. Name the 2 places where the action happens in this chapter. Okay, so the first setting is at the inn, right? And they're kind of inside the inn at first when they're searching for the key and then searching for the chest, but then later they're outside, but that'll be one setting. So it's called the Admiral Benbow Inn. So that's one setting, that's one place. And then later, Jim takes the letter, or the packet and everything with the map, and he takes that to Dr. Livesey's house. Livesey's, did I spell that wrong? I think so. No, that's right. Looks weird. Dr. Livesey's house is the other setting, okay? So, when they're at the inn, that's kind of like most of the chapter. But when he switches and goes to Dr. Livesey's house, that's on page 15. Because he jumped out of the ditch, he talked with the officers, calmed his mom, and then he went to Dr. Livesey's house. So I would say the Benbow Inn is introduced on page 10, but Dr. Livesey's house is introduced on page 15. So I'm going to say pages 10 and pages 15. Sorry if that was cut off a little bit. I'm going to take that giant Features of an Adventure Story whiteboard down before it crashes down on my head. Okay, so that's it for page 25. Sorry, did I even mention what page we're on? Oh my gosh, the worst teacher. We were on page 25 this whole time. Hopefully you found it, by what it looks like and where we left off last time. Anyway, page 26 on the back. Okay, number 4. Dialogue is used on page 13 to show rather than tell. Just like Jim and his mother, the reader overhears the dialogue. What do we learn from the conversations? Okay, so I'm going to go back to page 13 and check. All right. So pretty much this whole page is just back and forth dialogue. See all the quotation marks? They're everywhere. except for this paragraph and this paragraph. So I'm going to reread this page, figure out what we learned from this dialogue. "Search him," shrieked the blind man. "Find the key or you'll answer to me." There was a lengthy pause and then another cry. "Someone got here before us. The key is gone." "Then find the sea chest and smash it to pieces," screeched the blind man. The sound of his voice sent a cold shiver running down my spine. I heard a commotion and the sound of footsteps coming from the upstairs area of the inn. Moments later, the window to the captain's room was flung open. Such force caused the glass to shatter and break. Then a man with a face resembling that of an angry gargoyle leaned out of the window into the moonlight. "Pew," he shouted. "It's like I told you already. Someone's been here before us. They rifled through Bill's chest." "Is it there?" Pew roared. "There's some money," said the gargoyle-faced man. "Forget the money," Pew spat. "Flint's map, I mean." "It's nowhere to be found, I tell ya." "Blast it," cried the blind man. "It's that boy. I should have dealt with him earlier. He was here just a few minutes ago. I know it. Scatter, lads, and hunt the rascal down." Okay, so that's all the dialogue. So what do we learn? All right, is it Pew and his men have found Flint's map? Well, no, definitely not. They're looking for the map. They have not found it. Jim found it. The items Pew and his men are looking for are gone. Yes, we know that one is definitely true, okay? But let's keep looking. Pew is more interested in Flint's map than the money. Yeah, that's what it seemed. He said, "Forget the money, we're looking for the map." So far B and C look good. D, Pew knows Jim has taken the key and Flint's map. Yep, he said it was the boy and that he should have dealt with him earlier. So it's B, C, and D, which is actually option E. That's a tricky one. See, it means B, C, and D are all correct. So instead of circling all three of those, you just choose E. Tricky, tricky, tricky. Okay, number 5. In the following sentence on page 14, what does the idiom "hold their ground" mean? So an idiom is, it means it's a phrase that has a deeper meaning. It's not just the literal meaning, okay? So here's the sentence that's found on page 14. Pew, however, attempted to convince the others to hold their ground and not flee like scalded rats. So what does hold their ground mean? Does it mean collect dirt from the side of the road? No, definitely not. He does not want them to do that. Does it mean stay in place and not give up? Maybe. Does it mean run away quickly? Nope. Have a meeting? No. If you hold your ground, it means you stay in place and you don't give up. That's what he wants his men to do, but they are trying to run, okay? So that one's B. In the following sentence on page 20, how does the use of the phrase, "do not breathe a word of," contribute to the meaning of the passage? So remember, this is from the conversation between Dr. Livesey and Squire Trelawney and Jim, because they're talking about their plans, and Dr. Livesey tells Squire Trelawney, remember, do not breathe a word of what we've found. So what does it mean if you don't breathe a word of something? Does that mean the phrase suggests the men must keep their findings secret? Or B, the phrase suggests the information and journey are dangerous? C, the phrase suggests that the squire should tell people what they have found so that he can assemble the best crew possible? D, the phrase suggests that the squire is feeling ill? Or is it A and B, which would be these two? Okay, so if you don't breathe a word of what they've found, it's definitely A. The men must keep their findings secret. So he has to keep the map and everything, their journey, a secret. So that's definitely one of them. But I think it's also B. The phrase suggests the information and journey are dangerous. So he wants them to keep it a secret. He doesn't want them to tell anything because it's dangerous. People have already died because of this map, because of the treasure. So it's actually E. A and B are both correct answers. Okay, another one of those kind of tricky ones like up here. But there's more than one answer possible, and instead of saying choose, I don't remember how they used to word it, choose any options or choose all correct options. That's how they used to say it, I think. I don't remember. But instead of choosing multiple, they just have it like that, A and B. Okay, moving over to page 27. All right, it says this question has two parts, answer part A and then answer part B. If you're in my class, you know that is like a pet peeve of mine. I don't know why they always tell you this. Why do they feel the need to tell you this? Obviously, you're going to answer part A first, and then you're going to go to part B. You're not going to do this first and then go up here. That's silly. That's ridiculous. Okay, anyway, off my soapbox. 7, part A. What is the Jolly Roger? Okay, so, oh, good, right here. On page 16 in your reader, it explained what the Jolly Roger was. So I would say it's a pirate flag, or the flag that pirates flew on their ships. And I don't know why they call it the Jolly Roger. Doesn't explain that part. The flag the pirates flew on their ships, I guess. Okay. And part B, what was the purpose of the Jolly Roger? So why did they have this specific flag or variations of it on their ships? Okay, so I feel like that one's kind of like an inference question. Use your best information. But I would say that it's kind of intimidating looking, right? It's a skull and crossbones, or a skull and swords usually is the X. So it was supposed to like scare them. Okay, so it says the symbol struck such fear. So I would say that it was used to identify pirate ships and scare sailors. So the purpose of the flag was to scare off other ships and sailors. Okay, if they're scared, then you've already, you already have an advantage over them as a pirate, I'm assuming. Okay, and that information was on page 16 in the reader. Okay, number 8. What do Jim, Dr. Livesey, and Squire Trelawney decide to do after opening the treasure map? So they open the treasure map, they take a look. What do they do then? They turn the map over to the authorities. Authorities means like police. Do they give the map to the police? No, definitely not. We can take out that one. B, Squire Trelawney decides to go to Bristol to hire a ship and crew. Yeah, that sounds like a good option so far. Let's read the rest though. C, the doctor and Squire agree to pay Jim a handsome sum for the map. No, they never wanted to pay him for the map. D, Dr. Livesey decides to go to Bristol and hire a ship and crew. Ooh, tricky. So that's the same answer, it's just different character. Squire Trelawney decides to go to Bristol and hire a ship and crew, or was it Dr. Livesey that decided to go to Bristol and hire a ship and crew? It was Squire Trelawney. So it was B. And what page was that on? Here's the map. Right down here on page 18. The Squire was delighted. Tomorrow I'll set off for Bristol. In 10 days, we'll have the best ship and crew in England. Okay, so that was page 18 when he decided to go get a crew and ship. Number 9. I think the last question. Yep. The back page of this one is blank. So number 9, last one. Whom does Squire Trelawney hire to be the cook on the Hispaniola? So remember, the Hispaniola is the name of the ship. Who does he hire to be the cook, though? Their little chef. That's in the letter that he sent back to Dr. Livesey on page 21. Okay, so in his letter, well, it's kind of like the second half of this paragraph, talking about a random hobbling man touched by his story, engaged him on the spot to be the ship's cook. Long John Silver, he is called. Lost his leg. So, peg leg pirate named Long John Silver is going to be the cook. So, the squire hired Long John Silver as the cook. And that was page 21 for the letter. Okay. And that's all the questions for that part of our lesson. So if you need to pause, take a break, bathroom break, snack break, go noodle break, run around the house break, go pet a dog or cat for me break, go for it. And then moving on, we just have one activity more. Okay. So once you're ready, move on to page 29. This is the last bit, and we are planning your story. Okay, so we're planning your story, your adventure story, the one that I was talking about in the beginning of this lesson. So don't worry so much about the instructions up here. We didn't do part of this in lesson 2. We're just going to be planning a little bit about the setting, and then we're going to be planning a lot about the character that is your main character in your story, okay? Your memorable hero. So it's this page, front and back, that we're completing, and that's it for this lesson. So this one's going to be way shorter than the last 2, so you're welcome. First, we need to think of the writing prompt. So I'm trying to find the exact wording of it real quick. Here, I can find it in my book. So your story, it can be, you know, it's from your own imagination, it's your creative story, but we want them all to be kind of about the same theme. So we have a prompt, and it's not like answering a question prompt, it's just to kind of give you some guidelines and some ideas for how you're going to plan your story, okay? Bear with me, I'm trying to find it. Okay. All right, so here is your prompt. Listen closely. I had it written down, but my printer is not working. I was going to print it out and show you guys, but that's okay. Or maybe I can show you on the computer. Do 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 do. Do, 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 do. Okay. Thanks, Mrs. Flinton. All right, so, oh, it's gonna be really hard to read on there. It's tiny. And maybe backwards? Lame. Okay, I'm gonna read it to you. Change of story. Change of story. Okay. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So, it says, imagine a character gets lost in a remote, isolated area like the jungle, desert, mountains, forest, tundra, or on an island. You may also choose a specific place for the setting of your story. Write a 1 or 2 page story in which you show how the character survives. Okay, so there's also some questions to get you thinking about your writing. So the questions are, what is the setting like? So it gave you a bunch of ideas. And I'm going to write them in this box here as examples of what you can choose. Don't write all of these down, okay? You're going to choose one setting, one place, one location for where your story takes place. Not all of these. That would be strange. Okay, so your ideas could be jungle, It could be in a desert. We've written stories about the desert already when we were learning about Middle Ages. It could be in the mountains. It could be in a forest. It could be in a tundra, like frozen tundra, or an island. Or it can be something entirely different, and that can be your made-up setting, whatever you want, okay? So your character is lost in one of these places, though, and your story is going to be how they survive. So your adventure story is how do they survive being lost in one of these places. So maybe you know a lot about one of these ecosystems in particular. Like a lot of you wrote, or you made your dioramas. Remember your little cardboard box models for reading trail? A lot of you guys made jungle ones. Some of you guys even did ocean ones. Maybe you're stuck in an ocean and you're on a raft and you're trying to survive, okay? So I would pick a setting that you are familiar with so that you can write a lot about it. So pick your setting for your story. And if you need to think about this for a while first, maybe you don't have any ideas about your setting or character yet, that's totally fine. Come back to this, plan out your setting and character later on. For the next box, though, it says, what kinds of characters might appear in your setting? So who else is your main character going to encounter? What type of characters? Like in our story right now, Treasure Island, right now there's a lot of dangerous pirate type of characters. But maybe if you were writing, let's say your story is in the desert, maybe you would meet a bunch of Bedouin tribesmen. Do you guys remember those from our Middle Ages unit? Or in the jungle, maybe you meet Tarzan. I don't know. Whatever you want. What kind of characters will they meet in your setting? Okay, and then once you've thought about the setting, we're going to think about your main character, okay? And remember, the character is a memorable hero. So you can write that down next to my character. So your character has to be the hero of the story. They can't be this forgettable dude who no one cares about. They have to be the hero in the story. So think about any good book you've read, any good movies you've watched. There's usually one main good, memorable hero of the adventure movie or book, right? Like in Harry Potter. Harry Potter is obviously the memorable hero. There's lots of side characters and other main characters and bad characters like the villains, but who is your main character, your good hero character? Okay, so right here in this first box, you're gonna write their name. So what is your character's name? That's the first part, okay? The memorable hero of Treasure Island is Jim Hawkins, but you're not writing that. You're writing your own story. In the next box, you are using as many descriptive words as you can to describe what your character looks like. Describe their hair color, their eye color, their height, any other features you can think of. Describe them in painful detail so that if you read that description to somebody, they could draw out what your character looked like, okay? And then in this box, a little less important, but it's up to you. What does your character's voice sound like? So do they have a big, brawny, manly, strong voice, or do they have a little squeaky, nervous voice at the beginning of the story? And maybe they get braver throughout the story and then become, stronger and braver and more confident. But what does their voice sound like? Okay? You're obviously not going to hear their voice in the story because you're writing it. You're not going to be, acting it out or anything. So we won't actually hear your character's voice, but you can describe how it sounds, and that gives us, a better sense of who your character is and what they're like, okay? And then on the back, page 30, there's a few more. Still describing your main character. How does your character move? Describe how he or she walks, dances, or moves around, okay? Describe how they walk. Are they limping? Do they have a peg leg? Probably not, but Do they walk slowly and nervously and like they're shy? Or do they walk very confidently and kind of strut around? Okay, totally up to you. This one's fun. What is your character's favorite food? I don't know why that's important, but that's nice. I mean, you're just thinking about your character in detail, okay? So think just deeply about your character. What does your character like to do in his or her free time? So any hobbies, activities they like to do when they're bored? What is your character's family like? So we know already about Jim Hawkins' family. His dad died in chapter 1, but he still has his mom who runs the Benbow Inn. So think of some imagined family members for your character of your adventure story. Does your character have any special talents? That's kind of cool. And maybe those talents can help them later on in the story. And then, according to the writing prompt that I read to you guys, your character is stranded in a remote, isolated place. So the remote means like far away, isolated, they're alone, totally alone, okay? What does he or she miss most about home? So your character's stuck all by themselves in a weird place. What do they miss about home? Why are they trying to get back home? Okay? So fill out this page, 29 and 30, all about your main character for your adventure story, and start thinking of some action and the plot of your story, okay? What's going to happen in your story? You can't just introduce a setting and a character. You need to have lots of things that happen, okay? So start thinking about all those things for this lesson in particular, but throughout the rest of this unit, we're going to be working on these stories, okay? And it does just say a 1 or 2 page story, but I mean, Treasure Island is, and this is like the abridged version, so it's shorter, but it's super long and very interesting. So if you would like to make it longer than 1 or 2 pages, that's what I would recommend, because this is the end of 4th grade, right? We're beyond writing just like 1 page stories. So we're going to try and make ours a little longer, but that's okay. All right, I am very curious to hear about your settings, your characters, and your stories. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.